Hello guys, this is your friend Itachi Fanfic 3.0 and we are back a new fanfic story which is, what if Naruto's eye power fails right now, can he heal his brother, and show him how? Part 1. Let's start fanfic without wasting more time. He held the boy close, his hands steady though his heart wasn't. The world around him looked like it had already survived the end. Broken ground, torn air, a silence that didn't feel like peace but like exhaustion. He wasn't thinking about the battle anymore. He wasn't thinking about winning. All he cared about was the slow, fragile breath brushing against his wrist. The boy's pulse. Faint, but alive. The blonde shinobi breathed in deeply, letting the truth settle. He whispered softly, in a rap-like rhythm that came from somewhere deeper than pain. You always walked ahead, actin' like no one mattered. But see, when you broke, my whole world shattered. You ain't just a rival. You ain't just a name. You're the fire in my shadow. You're half my flame. He looked down at the boy's face, covered in dust, smeared with blood, marked with battles he shouldn't have fought alone. The blonde shinobi didn't shed tears. He didn't need to. Every breath he took felt like one long tear inside. He adjusted the boy's weight in his arms, holding him like someone holds something sacred. He thought of how many years they had spent pushing against each other, never realizing they were being shaped by the same storm. He remembered the first day they stared each other down, both pretending to be stronger than they were. He remembered the first time they fought side by side, silently understanding each other without trying. He remembered all the times they argued, clashed, separated, only to collide again like two planets caught in the same orbit. He wasn't recalling these moments because he wanted to. These memories came like a natural tide, soft, steady, inevitable. He whispered again. Every step you took alone. I matched you from behind. Every wall you built up. I broke it in my mind. You said you don't need nobody. But here I stand. Your burden in my arms. Your life in my hands. The wind moved faintly around them, dust drifting like slow-motion ash. For a moment, the battlefield felt like the entire world had stopped just to watch this bond. Broken, bruised, but unyielding. The blonde warrior slowly lifted his eyes. In the distance stood the enemy. Tall, cruel, calm, like a god watching ants burn. The enemy's eyes held arrogance, as if he already understood the outcome. You're wasting your time, the villain said. He chose this path. He brought this on himself. The blonde shinobi's voice came low, steady. He didn't choose pain. He chose survival. The enemy smiled darkly. And survival requires sacrifice. The blonde shinobi tightened his jaw, speaking in a steady rap flow. Yeah, he fought alone. But that don't mean he should've. You pushed him, trapped him, twisted what he could've. And now he's down. But he ain't gone. You read the story wrong. He's breathing on. The villain raised a brow. You still believe you can save him? The blonde warrior looked at the boy in his arms, then back at the enemy. I don't believe. I know. He slowly lowered the boy onto the ground. His movements were gentle, precise, like placing down a piece of his soul. He brushed the boy's hair out of his eyes and said, just stay with me. Don't let go. Then he stood. His aura shifted, rising like a tide pulled by the moon. Markings on his face sharpened. His eyes glowed with a power that seemed ancient, something not learned but awakened. The villain watched with a mocking smile. So you intend to fight me alone now? The blonde shinobi stepped forward. Not alone. Never alone. His voice dropped into a raw, dangerous rap. He ain't just a comrade. He ain't just a fight. He's the piece of me that kept my darkness in the light. You hurt him thinkin' I'd crumble through. But you made one mistake. I fight best for two. The enemy moved first. A flash of distorted energy ripping through the ground. The blonde warrior didn't flinch. He stepped into the attack, pushing through it with sheer will, as if splitting darkness apart with his bare hands. He closed the distance in a heartbeat, striking the enemy with a force that echoed across the battlefield. But the villain quickly regained footing. "You're strong," he said. "But strength born from emotion burns out fast." The blonde shinobi smirked slightly. "That's where you're wrong." And he surged forward again. The battle that followed wasn't a clash of fists. It was a clash of belief. Blinding beams of chakra clashed against controlled, fiery determination. Each strike the blonde warrior delivered wasn't powered by rage. It was powered by loyalty. Each blow the enemy returned was fueled by cold philosophy. A belief that bonds were weaknesses. Dust exploded. Ground cracked. Energy waves roared across the empty battlefield. But the blonde shinobi's expression didn't shake. Every attack he dodged, every strike he countered, every step he took was fueled by one truth. He would not let the boy behind him slip away. Meanwhile, the injured boy on the ground stirred again. Only slightly. But enough. His lips moved. Barely audible. "You stupid idiot." The blonde warrior heard it. Even through the bottle's chaos, he heard that one broken whisper. A small smile flickered across his face. Not relief. Not victory. Recognition. He responded under his breath. "Still breathin'. Good." The enemy heard it too. "Touching," he said. "But meaningless." The blonde warrior's eyes hardened. "You don't get to decide what's meaningful." With a sudden burst, he launched forward, landing a hit that sent the villain skidding back. Dust erupted around him. He spoke again, this time louder. "You think bonds drag us down? Then you never had one. You don't know how two broken souls can rise like one sun. You don't get it. You won't. Your world's too small. But hear this now. You're the one bout to fall." The enemy wiped his mouth, amused. "So be it. Show me the strength of your bond." The blonde shinobi planted his feet, power radiating from him like a storm preparing to break. He whispered one last time to himself. For him. Always for him. And then, he charged. The battlefield roared to life. Attacks collided like thunder clashing against fire. The sky seemed to tremble. The earth cracked under the weight of their clash. The injured boy watched through half-open eyes, unable to move, but able to feel. Able to feel that he wasn't alone. Not anymore. Not ever again. The episode draws toward its end as the blonde shinobi stands between his fallen friend and the enemy, breathing hard but unbroken. He speaks in one final, steady verse. "You fall, I lift. You bleed, I stand. Your fight ain't done. While I'm still breathin' here, man. This story ain't fate. This story ain't done. We rise together. Two souls. One sun." And the episode ends there. With a promise. A vow. And the fire of a bond that refuses to die. The dust had barely settled, but the blonde shinobi stood firm. His breathing was heavy, but his resolve was unshaken. Behind him, the boy he cared for was lying on the cracked ground, still fighting for every breath, refusing to slip away. That was enough. Enough to keep him steady. Enough to keep him moving forward. The enemy rose again. Slowly. Gracefully. As if nothing had happened. "You're persistent," the villain said calmly. The blonde warrior wiped blood from his lip and answered without hesitation. "Persistence is what kept him alive this long. And it'll keep me goin' too." His voice flowed like a rap verse, slow but sharp. "You think I'm breakin'? Nah. I only bend. You think you're winnin'? Wait till the end. You touched the wrong soul. You crossed the wrong line. Now every hit I throw is twice yours and mine." The enemy stepped forward, the earth trembling beneath every step. "You're stalling," he said. "You know he can't survive long." The blonde shinobi's eyes narrowed. "You know what he is. He's the guy who survived everything you threw at him. And I'm the guy who never let go." He readied his stance again. "You want me. Stop talking and take your shot. And the villain did. A surge of deadly energy ripped through the air, spiraling toward him. The blonde warrior braced himself, pushing back with sheer force, chakra exploding from him in waves. The collision tore through the battlefield again, rocks splitting, ground sinking. But he didn't fall. He held his ground like a mountain refusing to break. He stepped forward through the blast, smoke curling around him like a cloak. He spoke again, voice steady, rhythm strong. Yeah, I'm bleedin', but I'm breathin'. You ain't ready for the reason. I'm a storm when I'm needed. And right now, I'm undefeated. Behind him, the boy on the ground stirred again. His fingers twitched. His chest rose in a sharper breath. His eyes halfway opened, blurry but focused on only one person. You, still, fighting. The blonde shinobi didn't turn. He didn't need to. Yeah, he answered softly. For you. For a moment, the injured boy's eyes softened. Something rare, something almost hidden. Idiot. A whisper. A heartbeat of a word. But it hit deeper than any attack. It grounded him. Fueled him. Strengthened him. He smiled slightly. Call me that again when you're standing. The villain interrupted the moment with a scowl. This bond, this ridiculous attachment, it's what weakens both of you. The blonde warrior finally turned his head slightly, just enough to show his expression. Calm. Sharp. Confident. You keep sayin' bonds make us weak, he said, voice dropping into a pure rap rhythm, but look around. You're the one standin' alone. You're the one who ain't got nobody to fight for. You're the empty one here. The enemy attacked again, this time faster, angrier. The blonde shinobi countered every strike with precision, as if his body remembered moves born from years of pushing past limits. Punch after punch, blast after blast. They collided in a storm of raw power and belief. The villain launched a massive attack aimed straight at the fallen boy. For a heartbeat, everything slowed. The blonde warrior realized where the strike was heading. And he didn't hesitate. He threw himself forward, taking the full force of the blast head on. The explosion sent him skidding across the ground, blood spraying from his arms. His clothes tore. His knees scraped. But he didn't fall. He didn't even let his face drop. He stood right in front of the injured boy again, spreading his arms like a shield. The villain tilted his head. You would die for him. The blonde shinobi answered. No, I live for him. The rhythm in his voice was so sharp, so raw, it almost carved itself into the wind. He's fallen before. I pulled him out. He lost his way. I changed the route. You wanna break him? Break me first. Come take your shot. Hit me at my worst. I'll take the hit. Every damn one. You won't touch him. While I'm still the sun. The villain actually paused. A tiny flicker of emotion. Confusion. Crossed his eyes. You speak as if he matters more than the world. The blonde shinobi replied. To me, he does. And the moment those words left his lips, a shift occurred. The injured boy's eyes widened. Just a little. Something inside him stirred. Something long buried under pride and pain. A warmth he didn't like admitting. A truth he never said aloud. But now, he felt it. The villain saw this and scoffed. How pathetic. He charged again. The blonde shinobi didn't step back. He stepped forward. Their clash shook the ground again, but this time, something was different. The blonde warrior wasn't just fighting. He was rising. With every hit he took. With every wound he ignored. With every breath he forced out. He wasn't just protecting his friend. He was proving something. Not to the enemy. To himself. To the boy watching. To the bond that never died. Finally, after a massive impact that sent both fighters skidding back, the enemy exhaled sharply. You're stronger than I expected, he admitted. The blonde shinobi wiped blood from his eyebrow. Then expect more. He inhaled deeply, power swirling around him, brighter than before. Behind him, the wounded boy whispered with all the strength he could gather. Don't die, idiot. The blonde shinobi smirked. Not today. He looked at the villain directly. Not while he's breathing. The villain clenched his fists. Then I'll end him first. That was the last line needed. Something inside the blonde warrior snapped into clarity. He stepped forward. Slowly. Deliberately. Like a king walking toward a throne he was born to take. His voice dropped into the darkest, sharpest rap verse he had ever spoken. You lay a finger on him. You dealin' with me. You try to break his soul. I'll set you free. From breath, from pride. From every lie you hold. I ain't backin' down. Not now. Not old. You want war. It's right here. You want fear. Come near. You want him gone. Try your hand. 'Cause I stand for him. Till the last grain of sand. The villain braced himself. The blonde shinobi braced himself. The air shifted. The ground tensed. The final clash of this episode approached with the weight of the entire world behind it. And the episode ends with the blonde warrior whispering one final line. You fall, I rise. You break, I stand. Together we finish. What destiny never planned. The air between them felt heavy, thick, as if the world itself was waiting for what would happen next. The blonde shinobi stood with his chest rising and falling in slow, powerful breaths. Every wound on his body stung, but none of it mattered, not when the boy behind him was still fighting to breathe. The enemy's eyes narrowed. So you still stand? The blonde warrior replied without hesitation. I ain't fallen. Not while he's still alive. His words flowed like a verse sharpened by pain and purpose. You think this body's weak? It's built from scars. You think I came alone? He's my twin star. You thought I'd crumble when he hit the ground. But his heartbeat's enough to keep me around. The villain raised a hand, power swirling around his fingers like coiled venom. You're delaying the inevitable. The blonde shinobi smirked. So are you. And then he moved. Not fast. Not sudden. But with a calm certainty, like every step pulled strength from the earth itself. He charged. The enemy countered, unleashing a wave of dark energy that split the ground behind them. Rocks flew. Cracks spread. Light and shadow collided in a violent dance. But the blonde shinobi kept going. Every punch he threw had weight. No, meaning. Every hit he blocked had purpose. He wasn't fighting for victory. He was fighting for someone who once fought alone for far too long. Behind them, the injured boy blinked slowly. His vision was blurry, but he could see silhouettes moving, flashes of gold and black smashing into each other like storms. Why are you doing all this? He whispered, barely audible. He didn't understand it. Or maybe he did. But accepting it was harder. He had lived his life without leaning on anyone. Without trusting anyone. Without letting anyone stand beside him. And yet, there he was. Someone standing in front of him. Taking hits meant for him. Bleeding for him. Fighting the world for him. A warmth stirred in his chest, unfamiliar and uncomfortable. He tightened his fist weakly. Don't die. The blonde shinobi heard that. Even through the battle, even through the chaos, he heard that soft plea. And it made him stronger. He ducked under a blast, spun around, and delivered a punch so precise it shook the villain's stance. The enemy staggered, surprised. What is this strength? He demanded. The blonde shinobi looked up, eyes glowing with fierce certainty. This ain't chakra. This ain't training. This ain't fate. He stepped closer, voice turning into a deep, slow rap. This is loyalty. This is bond. This is two souls fightin'. Where both belong. You stood on your own. Thought that made you tall. But real strength is risen when someone else falls. The villain attacked again, angrier this time, swings heavier and faster. The blonde shinobi blocked one strike, dodged another, but the third landed hard. Blood shot from his mouth, splattering the dirt. He stumbled, just for a second. The injured boy's heart clenched. Idiot! Get up! And he did. The blonde warrior wiped the blood with his thumb and whispered. Still breathin'. Still standin'. The enemy growled. You're persistent. He chuckled softly. You keep sayin' that. He surged forward again. This time the clash was enormous. Energy bursting outward like a silent explosion. The sheer force pushed everything back. Dust, shattered rocks, even the air trembled. The villain landed multiple hits, but none dropped the blonde shinobi. Instead, the warrior got closer. 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 Until his fist connected right with the enemy's chest. The villain's eyes widened as he was thrown back, skidding across the battered earth. The blonde shinobi panted, shoulders rising and falling, but his eyes stayed fixed, steady, unwavering. The villain stood again, wiping his mouth. You're impressive. But he will die. The blonde warrior's expression hardened instantly. No. He pointed at the fallen boy. He lives. Even if I have to rewrite destiny myself. The villain tilted his head. Then let's see how far you'll go. He summoned an attack larger than anything before, energy swirling into a massive sphere of annihilation, enough to erase everything in its path. The blonde shinobi's pulse spiked. And behind him, the injured boy whispered. No. Don't. Take that hit. The blonde warrior laughed softly, almost gently. When have I ever listened to you? He stepped forward. He raised his hand. He whispered a final verse under his breath, slow and steady. If the world wants him gone, it can go through me. If destiny wants him erased, it'll face what I be. I ain't shaken. I ain't scared. 'Cause when he's alive, I'm prepared. The massive attack launched. The blonde shinobi stood between it and the boy. Arms wide. Legs planted. Soul burning. The screen of chakra and destruction roared toward him. And he met it head on. The force ripped at his skin, tore at his clothes, burned through his blood. But he didn't move. He pushed back. And slowly, impossibly, the massive attack began to shrink against his willpower. The villain's eyes widened. What? The blonde shinobi shouted, voice echoing like thunder and truth. He lives. With one final push, he shattered the attack, breaking it into fading sparks. Silence fell. Dust drifted. The boy on the ground stared at him, stunned. Breath catching. Heart pounding. The blonde shinobi turned his head slightly, giving a small smile. Told you I ain't dyin'. The villain trembled with rage now. You are a fool. The warrior stepped forward. And you're finished. He lowered his stance. His power rose again. Brighter. Hotter. Stronger than anything he had shown before. The enemy realized it too late. He wasn't fighting alone anymore. He was fighting for two. And the episode closes with one final line from the blonde shinobi. Your end begins where my bond begins. The battlefield breathed like a wounded beast, dust still floating as if refusing to settle, afraid of what would come next. The blonde shinobi moved forward slowly, every step deliberate, every breath controlled. His injuries were deep, but the fire inside him burned louder than the pain outside. The enemy watched him with disbelief, a rare expression twisting across a face used to dominance. Why won't you break? The villain asked. The blonde warrior rolled his shoulders, cracked his neck lightly, and replied in a voice low but sharp. Because breaking ain't in my vocabulary. He paused, letting the words sink in like a verse before the beat drops. You're fightin' with power. I'm fightin' with purpose. The villain snarled. Purpose won't save him. The blonde shinobi's eyes hardened instantly. That's exactly why you're lossin'. You think strength is what you carry. I think strength is what you protect. Behind him, the injured boy lay still but not unconscious anymore. His vision was foggy, but his hearing was clear, every word hitting him deeper than the pain inside his body. No one had ever spoken for him like that. No one had ever stood for him like that. No one had ever burned the earth for him like that. He wanted to speak, but his throat was tight, choked by a feeling he didn't know how to name. The blonde shinobi sensed it and smirked softly without turning. Don't force yourself. Just breathe. I got the rest. The villain raised a hand, gathering more energy, darker than before. It twisted like a shadow searching for a weakness. You won't get close again, the villain declared. The blonde warrior replied with a slow, confident verse. Distance don't matter. When your will cuts deeper. You hide in the dark. I walk in as a keeper. His chakra flared around him, wild yet controlled, like a flame that knew exactly where to burn. He charged. The villain attacked first, a thick wave of darkness rushing at him like a collapsing wall. The blonde shinobi didn't stop. He sliced through it with sheer force of momentum, pushing his body beyond its limits but never hesitating. The villain panicked for a second. Just a second. And that second was enough. The blonde shinobi appeared right beside him, fist pulled back. You thought you knew my strength, he whispered. Then the punch hit. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't explosive. It was final. The villain was thrown across the battlefield, crashing hard, rolling until his body slammed against jagged rock. He coughed violently, trying to stand, but his legs shook. He wiped the blood from his lips. You shouldn't be able to do this. The blonde shinobi tilted his head. That's the thing about fighting someone who ain't fightin' alone. He looked back at the injured boy with a soft expression that held a strange warmth. I'm tired of people thinking he's alone. The villain roared and charged again, this time desperate. The blonde shinobi met him halfway. Their fists collided, energy bursting out between them like a silent shockwave. The ground trembled, cracks spreading in a spiderweb pattern. Every hit after that was brutal. Body against body, soul against soul, will against will. The injured boy forced himself to sit up slightly, teeth gritting from pain. He watched the battle unfold like a storm that refused to end. He hated feeling useless. He hated being protected. He hated that his strength wasn't enough right now. But he also felt something else. Something warm. Something steady. Something terrifying. Someone was fighting for him. Someone who believed in him. Someone who refused to let him vanish. He whispered, almost involuntarily. Why? Why go this far? The blonde shinobi heard it even while fighting, even while blocking a barrage of attacks. He didn't turn, but his voice carried back like a verse carried on wind. Because you deserved someone to go this far a long time ago. The injured boy froze. The villain attacked again, furious. You waste your strength on someone broken. The blonde shinobi grabbed the villain's wrist mid-strike, twisted, and forced him down to one knee. He ain't broken, he growled, voice dropping into something fierce and unshakable. He's just never had someone to lean on. The villain struggled, but the blonde warrior tightened his grip. And that's what scares you. He slammed the villain hard into the ground. Dust exploded upward, swirling around them. The villain gasped, breath ripped from his lungs. I'm not done. You are, the blonde shinobi said quietly. He placed his palm over the villain's chest, power gathering, not destructive, but sealing, binding, ending. Your hate stops here. The seal spread, glowing, wrapping around the enemy like roots closing over disturbed soil. The villain screamed, trying to resist, but the blonde warrior didn't flinch. The seal finished. The villain collapsed, unconscious, powerless. Silence fell. The blonde shinobi finally exhaled, a long, shaking breath, and turned toward the injured boy. He walked slowly, every step showing exhaustion he refused to show during the fight. He reached him and knelt down. You still with me? The boy stared up at him, eyes wide with emotions he couldn't name. You're stupid, he muttered. The blonde shinobi laughed softly. Probably. You could have died. Didn't. You shouldn't have done that. Already did. You didn't have to protect me. The blonde warrior looked him directly in the eyes, expression finally softening completely. Yes, I did. The injured boy's chest tightened. He looked away, breath trembling. Why? He whispered again. The blonde shinobi leaned slightly closer, voice dropping into a low, honest rhythm. Because somewhere along the way, protecting you became the only fight that mattered. The boy's heartbeat stuttered. His chest warmed. His fingers trembled. He didn't know how to answer that. The blonde warrior didn't expect him to. He simply offered his hand. Let's go home. The injured boy stared at the hand, and after a long, heavy moment, he took it. Their fingers locked. Not by accident, not by force, but by choice. The blonde shinobi pulled him up with care, holding him steady when he stumbled. The boy didn't let go. And neither did he. The episode ends with them standing together. Two silhouettes. Two souls. Two strengths that had finally learned to share the weight. The path back home wasn't peaceful. It wasn't calm. It wasn't quiet. It was heavy. Heavy with unspoken words. Heavy with lingering fear. Heavy with the weight of everything that almost happened. The blonde shinobi kept the injured boy close, one arm firm around his back, guiding him step by step. The boy's legs shook with every movement, but he refused to show weakness. Whenever he stumbled, he hissed in frustration, and the blonde warrior tightened his grip automatically. Relax, he murmured. I got you. Those words hit deeper than they should have. The injured boy looked away. You keep saying that, and I'll keep meanin' it. They kept walking. The sun was low now, hanging like a dying ember on the horizon. Its orange glow painted their shadows long and uneven across the broken earth. The boy finally whispered, You didn't have to fight so hard. The blonde shinobi answered softly, like dropping a verse in a quiet room. Hard is easy when it's for you. The boy's breath caught. He hated how those words made his chest ache. You're strange, he muttered. The blonde warrior smiled. Maybe. But I ain't lyin'. They continued forward until the boy's strength gave out again. His knees buckled, but the blonde shinobi caught him instantly. You're pushing yourself. I'm fine. Liar. The boy's fingers clenched at the front of the blonde shinobi's jacket, frustrated with his own weakness. I said I'm. You don't have to be fine. The blonde warrior cut in, voice gentle but solid. Not with me. The boy froze. Nobody had ever given him permission to not be fine. Not once. Not ever. He didn't know what to do with that kind of softness. He looked down, voice smaller than he intended. I don't want to depend on anyone. The blonde shinobi lifted his chin with two fingers, tilting his face up just slightly. You're not dependent on me. He leaned closer, eyes steady. You're trustin' me. That's different. The boy's heartbeat slammed in his chest. He swallowed hard. I don't trust easily. I know. Then why do you try so hard? The blonde shinobi's expression shifted. Something deep, something vulnerable flickering behind his eyes. 'Cause I see the way you act tough, like the world ain't ever touched you. But your eyes tell the truth you don't speak. The boy stiffened. What truth? The blonde warrior whispered. That you've been fightin' alone for too damn long. The boy's breath trembled. He wanted to deny it. He wanted to push him away. He wanted to say he didn't need anyone. But the truth clung to him too tightly, and the blonde shinobi saw right through him. So he said nothing. And silence became its own confession. The blonde warrior exhaled softly and crouched down. The boy frowned. What are you doing? Get on. The blonde shinobi said casually, as if it were obvious. No. Yes. I can walk. You could also die tryin'. Now get on. The boy glared, annoyed, embarrassed, and warm all at once. I'm not a kid. Never said you were. Then don't carry me. I'm not carryin' a kid. I'm carryin' someone I care about. The boy's world stopped. The blonde warrior didn't retract the words. Didn't soften them. Didn't take them back. He meant them. The boy looked away sharply, jaw tight, cheeks burning in a way he didn't know how to control. Without another word, the blonde shinobi reached back, grabbed his arm gently, and pulled him onto his back. The boy resisted for half a second, then gave in. His arms looped around the blonde warrior's shoulders. His cheek rested against the warm skin of his neck. His breath mixed with the blonde shinobi's steady heartbeat. And somehow, it felt safe. Strangely, dangerously, beautifully safe. The blonde shinobi stood up with him, adjusting his grip underneath. There you go, he said softly. Don't make this weird, the boy muttered. Too late, the blonde warrior teased. The boy's grip tightened involuntarily. Shut up. The blonde shinobi smiled. The kind of smile that only appeared when the world felt a little lighter. They moved forward again, step by step, the path unfolding beneath them. After a while, the boy whispered. Why didn't you leave me behind, when things got dangerous? The blonde shinobi didn't stop walking. Because I don't leave what's mine, he said simply. The boy's eyes widened. Yours. Yeah. The blonde warrior's voice lowered into a slow, deep verse. Someone I chose. Someone I protect. Someone who matters. The boy felt his entire body warm, heat rushing across his face. He hid it by burying his face against the blonde warrior's shoulder. Idiot, he whispered, but it sounded nothing like anger. More like something fragile. Something shy. Something real. The blonde shinobi chuckled, adjusting his hold on the boy's legs. I'll take that. Hours seemed to pass in that gentle rhythm. Breath against breath. Heartbeat against heartbeat. Step after steady step. As the moon rose above them, the blonde warrior finally spoke again. When you're healed, I wanna talk. About what? The boy asked quietly. About why I fight so hard when it comes to you. The boy's heart stumbled painfully. And if I don't want to talk about it? He whispered. The blonde shinobi answered without looking back. I'll wait. 1 day or 100. But I'll wait. The boy closed his eyes tightly. No one had ever waited for him before. He didn't know how to handle this kindness. This loyalty. This devotion that felt like it belonged in poetry, not reality. But he didn't let go. Not once. He held on to the blonde warrior like maybe he didn't want to lose him anymore. The episode ends with the blonde shinobi carrying him beneath the moonlight, steps slow but sure, and the injured boy whispering. Don't let go. I won't, the blonde warrior replied. Ever. Night wrapped around them like a quiet blanket. Moonlight traced silver lines across the blonde shinobi's shoulders as he carried the boy on his back. Every breath was warm against his neck, every heartbeat from behind him faint but alive. Alive was enough. He felt the boy tighten his arms faintly whenever his steps dipped on uneven ground, as if instinctively afraid of falling. I won't drop you, the blonde warrior murmured. The boy's voice came out low, rough. You keep saying things like that. 'Cause you don't believe it yet. The boy fell silent, not arguing this time. The blonde shinobi walked until the forest thickened around them, leaves whispering softly under the wind. He moved carefully, adjusting the boy's weight without making him feel like a burden. You're not tired? The boy asked quietly. The blonde warrior answered with a half smile. Tired? Yeah. Droppin' you. Never. The boy pressed his lips together, fighting the warmth rising in him again. Stop saying things like that. No. The boy huffed softly against his shoulder. You're impossible. And you're heavy, the blonde warrior teased, shifting him up jokingly. The boy froze. Put me down then. Nope. Why not? Because you're safest here. The boy's breath hitched. Safest. He wasn't used to that word. It felt foreign, like something that didn't belong to him but somehow fit too perfectly. He looked away, eyes half-lidded. You really care that much? The blonde shinobi didn't hesitate. Yeah, more than you think. The boy swallowed hard. That scares me. It should. The boy blinked. What do you mean? The blonde warrior's voice dropped into a raw, slow flow honesty. 'Cause when I care, I don't stop. Not halfway. Not someday. All the way. The boy's heart trembled violently. He had never been anyone's, all the way. As the forest opened into a clearing, the blonde shinobi finally lowered himself onto a fallen log, letting the boy slide gently into a seated position beside him, still holding him by the waist to keep him steady. You good? He asked softly. The boy nodded, though his eyes struggled to stay open. Don't sleep yet, the blonde warrior murmured. You'll feel worse. The boy leaned into him slightly, unintentionally, his shoulder brushing the blonde shinobi's chest. Then talk, he whispered. It keeps me awake. The blonde warrior paused. Then he spoke, slow and rhythmic, like verses stitched into the night. I wanna ask you something. The boy inhaled quietly. What? Back there, when you called out for me not to die. He turned his head slightly. Was that fear talkin'? Or something else? The boy tensed. He hadn't expected that question. His throat tightened. He looked down at his hands. Didn't want to lose you. Why? The boy's chest constricted painfully. Why? He didn't want to say it. Didn't want to expose soft places he'd spent years burying. Didn't want to let someone see the way his walls cracked around this one person. I don't know, he lied softly. The blonde warrior nudged his elbow gently. Try again. The boy took a shaky breath. Because you're the only one who ever stayed. The blonde shinobi's expression changed. Quietly, deeply. He shifted closer, their knees touching, their breaths mixing. The boy continued, voice fragile. You're the only one who didn't give up on me. Didn't walk away. Didn't treat me like I'm unworthy. Or dangerous. Or disposable. He laughed bitterly under his breath. I didn't want you to die because I don't want to go back to being alone. The blonde shinobi reached out slowly, carefully, resting his hand over the boy's trembling fingers. You won't, he whispered. Not now. Not ever. The boy didn't pull his hand away. He didn't speak either. He just let himself breathe. Really breathe, for the first time in a long while. The blonde warrior thumbed the back of his hand gently. I wanna tell you something too. The boy looked up, tired but attentive. What? The blonde shinobi exhaled, steady. When I saw you fall, it felt like my world cracked open. The boy blinked, stunned by the rawness of the confession. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I just moved. He shook his head softly. Protecting you wasn't a choice. It was instinct. The boy's breath faltered. Why, me? Because you matter, the blonde warrior answered, voice low and certain. And I don't need a reason beyond that. The boy's eyes softened, the tiniest vulnerability peeking through. You make everything complicated, he whispered. The blonde shinobi chuckled lightly. I make things honest. The boy leaned sideways until his shoulder rested fully against the blonde warrior's chest. The blonde shinobi wrapped an arm around him without hesitation, pulling him closer, letting him rest his weight comfortably. Moments passed. Quiet, warm, dangerous in their softness. Then the boy whispered, Don't leave. The blonde warrior kissed the top of his head with a breath so soft it was almost a promise. I'm not going anywhere. The boy closed his eyes slowly. You always say that. And I'll keep saying it until you believe it. The episode closes with the boy drifting into sleep against him, and the blonde shinobi staring into the moonlit forest with one thought echoing through his mind. I'll protect you, even from the parts of